Hi, it's Scarlett, and welcome back to another episode of the Sequestered Chef. This week we're going to be talking about the Dirty Dozen. And the Dirty Dozen are the 12 fruits and vegetables that you should always buy organic because of the pesticides. And then we'll talk about the Clean 15, which are 15 fruits and vegetables that you don't really need to worry about pesticides and you don't need to spend the extra money buying organic. We're also going to I'm going to show you some examples of labeling that you will find on products that are organic. And we'll talk about a few other little labels that you might run across and where you can get more information about those. And we're also going to talk about what organic does and doesn't mean. If you've been to some of my classes before, I talk about food labels and how they are designed to trick you and confuse you. So we're going to go through that a little bit about what exactly organic is. The Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15 list come from an organization called Environmental Working Group, and their website is ewg.org. They're a company that goes through and researches every year and does testing and comes up with this list. So, if you're on a budget, and who's not on a budget right now in these crazy times of 2020, it kind of helps you with your planning. So if there's 12 fruits and vegetables that you should always buy organic, you're probably not going to buy all 12 of them every week. So when you're planning your grocery list, you can look through that and just go to that website. They have, actually I took a snapshot and keep it in my phone of the list. And so I just make a list of which ones I really want to look for organic, and the rest of them I don't really worry about. So that's one way that you can prepare ahead of time before you go to the grocery store and manage your budget and still make some wise choices for your family. So before we get started, let's talk about what organic is and is not. So the organic label that we're talking about, it was designed and is regulated by the USDA and through a program called the National Organics Program that was created in the year 2000. So products have to have, if they're not natural fruits and vegetables, and if it's something that's processed, at least 95% of the ingredients in the product have to be organic for it to get the seal. And the seal that I'm talking about looks like, I have lots of examples here. It's this green and white label right here that says USDA organic. So you're going to look for that if you're buying canned goods. And I don't notice a huge price difference in regular and organic for canned items. But the actual produce, the fresh stuff, you do notice a difference in. So you can find that label on like cans and boxes, but I'll show you in a minute how you can find it on produce if they're not in a container. So they're certified. In order to get the seal, first of all, farmers have to go through a lengthy certification process. And there's a third-party certification process they have to go through. So it's pretty heavily monitored. And it's fairly difficult to become an organic farmer. So some things might actually be organic. They just didn't get that seal, so they can't call it organic. But some farms actually went ahead and instituted most of the procedures that are necessary. So be aware, though, organic doesn't mean completely pesticide-free. It just means that it doesn't have the list that the USDA requires them to avoid. So there are a few pesticides that are allowed, but obviously they must be decided, the USDA decided they're not too harmful that they wouldn't go ahead and give that seal. So there's another phrase called made with organic ingredients. So if you see that label, which is probably not going to have that circle that I just showed you, at least 70% of the ingredients in the product have to be organic in order to be called made with organic ingredients. And so if you have, I actually only had one fresh vegetable that was organic, and I already cooked it, so I saved the label on it. But you know how when you're at the register and you see them scrolling the little thing on top of the register and they're looking for the number for a fruit or vegetable when you're buying them just individually, they're looking for a 4 or 5 digit code. So if you find that, you can see this on this label right here. There's a little code, and if it's 5 digits and the first digit is 9, that means that it's organic. Anything else, a 4-digit code or a 5-digit code with another number besides 9 at the beginning, means it is not considered organic. So I have a label on my lemon, that's not organic. My avocado has a 4-digit and it starts with a 4, so it's not organic, but we're going to find out in a minute that that's on the Clean 15 list anyway. Now here's some strawberries that I knew were organic because I went looking for them, but they don't have the code, but they have the little label on it that says USDA organic, so that's how you would know if they're packaged. Same thing with my lettuce that I bought, it's right there. So all those things I felt comfortable. I probably paid just a little bit more. In fact, I'm not sure that where I was looking for this that there was anything but organic for that. But you can find strawberries both ways. Now I found a surprise in my refrigerator. I was pretty sure that these are organic, but they're not. The only label they have on them is a label back here that says sustainable farming since 1908. I don't really know what that means, but it's probably not organic since they don't have the seal on it. So to be certified organic, you have to be free of synthetic fertilizers. You can't use conventional pesticides, no sewage sludge, thank goodness, no irradiation, and no genetic engineering, which is a term that you might be familiar with called GMO, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But know that being certified organic has nothing to do with the size of the farm. A lot of people think that organic comes from small farms. That's not necessarily true. And it doesn't mean anything about the labor conditions at that farm. So there's another label that could be confusing, and you would maybe, when you're in a hurry going through the grocery store, you're going to think, oh, that's organic, and it's called all natural, or it's got the word natural somehow in it. There's no standardized label like there is for the certified organic for natural. And natural does not necessarily mean organic. It only means that the food was minimally processed, that there's no artificial ingredients, there's no preservatives, and any ingredients that are in, if it's a multi-ingredient product, all of them have been minimally processed. But anything with natural on the label could have GMOs, it could have hydrogenated vegetable oils, it could have antibiotics, growth hormones, other chemicals, and again, all natural doesn't apply or doesn't address farm labor practices at all. So basically, natural can be whatever the food manufacturer wants natural to mean, and there's no definition. You can go look up for it. Another one that might confuse you is called locally grown. It's not a standardized USDA term, so there's a lot of leeway. The big one is, how far is local? Is it in your county? Is it in your state? Is it in the Southeast? Is it in the United States? There is absolutely no definition of what local is supposed to mean. There's one thing about organic that you might not realize, but organic does not mean that it's more nutritious. It doesn't have any more vitamins or minerals than the non-organic. It's just talking about pesticides. So let's talk a little bit more about some labels, and then we'll go over the list of the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. So this is a chocolate, and it has got the USDA organic. It's also got non-GMO on it, and that means that nothing in it has been genetically modified. And when I actually found some little labels on, I went and foraged through my pantry for this video, and I found some labels that I'd never even noticed before. So non-GMO, it'll have a little check mark. Sometimes I have a little butterfly on it, and that just means that nothing was genetically modified. And the way that plants are often genetically modified is they'll take a gene out of one thing that has a characteristic that's desirable. Somehow it is put with a virus and injected into the cells of the product that they're trying to alter. So the problem with that is that it hasn't been done for long enough to know if there's any long-term consequences to genetically modifying food that we eat. It's done for meat as well, is my understanding. But so anyway, some people get very upset about GMO or non-GMO, so you just need to do your research and decide if that's something you want to watch out for as well. This one also says Rainforest Alliance certified cacao. So I don't know if that means labor practices or that they're trying to save the rainforest and do sustainable farming. I don't really know what that means, so that's going to be a good project for me later. This one is, the only thing on here is the USDA organic. This one has a strange label that I didn't see on any others. It says no preservatives, no non-GMO, and non-BPA. So all that sounds good. BPA, you probably heard a lot about in the news. It has to do with the lining in the cans and some plastics, and it is supposedly very dangerous to us in certain amounts. So a lot of manufacturers are trying to get away from putting that lining in canned food. Some of them still do it. I remember one of the examples I read about was Progresso soup. Everybody thought that you're eating healthier because you're buying that particular brand of soup because it was supposed to be the healthiest, but the inside of their cans had the BPA in it, and it turned out it wasn't quite so healthy after all. But if they haven't changed all of them, the company that makes Progresso soup is trying to change that. Here's another one. It just says heart healthy. Don't really know what that means. There's some things that they can put on the front of labels that don't really mean anything, so you'd have to look and see if that means anything, and it's very easy. You just Google that and you'll find a lot of articles. This one has the non-GMO label on it, and it also has the non-BPA liner. This one has the USDA organic. It's got a different looking label for non-GMO, and it's got a different looking label for non-BPA liner. This one has got everything. It's got non-GMO, the butterfly, it's got organic, and it's got a new one, gluten-free. Gluten-free has to do with wheat products. Some people don't like gluten because they're maybe celiac. Some just don't like it because they think it upsets their stomach, and some people just do it because it was a pretty faddish thing for a while. A lot of times people think that gluten or non-gluten means healthy. It doesn't necessarily mean that. You still need to know how to read the food label because it might be loaded with fat and sugar. It just doesn't have that particular thing that's in wheat. So don't be fooled by that and eat a box of gluten-free cookies because you really didn't do anything healthy there. Okay, this is some rotini that's made out of red lentil. This one says certified gluten-free. And my understanding from a friend of mine who's a baker that does gluten-free, and if it doesn't say certified gluten-free, it didn't go through the process of making sure that everything in the factory or the processing plant has absolutely no gluten can be in it at all. If it just says gluten-free and it doesn't have the word certified, it might be in a plant where both gluten products and gluten-free products are made. So if that's a real issue for you, as if somebody in your family is a celiac, you want to make sure that you know the difference in what those two labels mean. Oatmeal. Okay, one thing I wanted to say about that, there's the non-GMO. And here's one of those little things on the front of a label that could be confusing. It says oatmeal can help reduce cholesterol. They cannot say it does reduce cholesterol because that's making a medical claim and they're not allowed to do that. So all they can put is that it can or it may. So that's actually good for you, Quaker Oats. You didn't try to trick us. And then the EWG only usually deal with fresh produce in this Dirty Dozen and Clean 15. But in March of this year, they came out with an alert about raisins. And so raisins are processed, so that normally wouldn't make their list. But they did a test on, and in 99% of the raisin batches that were tested, 99% showed at least 2 pesticides. So they were alarmed enough that they sent out another alert and said, if you're gonna eat raisins, get organic, because the non-organic kind apparently are full of pesticides according to them. So that, I actually did not know there was such a thing, and so I went searching for it so I could show it to you. And there, sure enough, there was a big tub of Paul Newman's raisins. I think that's it for my examples. So let's get right to the list. So the Dirty 12, the ones that you always want to buy organic: strawberries, spinach, kale, and then nectarines. I think everybody knows apples at this point. There was such a scare, maybe 20 years ago, about the peel having so much pesticide, and you were giving your babies apple juice and you were going to kill your children. So I think everybody knows that one now. Grapes, peaches, cherries, pears, tomatoes, celery, and that's because celery is such a porous plant, it just absorbs whatever is put on it. And then potatoes. Even though potatoes are in the ground, it's the fertilizer that they're sitting in that it causes them to be on the Dirty 12 list. So what about the ones that it doesn't matter? And these are probably, you're going to buy a lot of this stuff. So when you're thinking about, oh, I can't buy organic, I don't have the kind of money for that. So out of that list that I just named, you know, realistically, how many of those things are you going to buy every week? But on the 20, or on the 15, the clean 15 list, avocados. And that kind of makes sense because an avocado has a nice thick peel. So the pesticides don't really get into the part you're going to eat. Sweet corn, the same thing. The husks kind of protect the corn on the inside. Pineapple obviously has a pretty tough skin. I thought this was interesting. Onions and asparagus. They don't taste good to bugs, so bugs leave them alone. So there's no need to put pesticide on them. Papaya is another one that you don't have to buy organic. Sweet peas that are frozen, you don't have to because the blanching process gets most of that off. Eggplant, again, because of the peel, is pretty thick. Cauliflower, I never could find why cauliflower or broccoli was on the clean list and not the Dirty Dozen list. But apparently, either the way it's made, it just doesn't absorb the pesticides, or they just don't put a lot of pesticides on those two. Cantaloupe, cabbage, honeydew melons, and kiwi, all those are kind of obvious because of the types of outer covering or peel that they have. But then there was mushrooms, and so I had to do a little digging on that one, no pun intended. But apparently it only takes 2 days to come from the ground, in the ground, to harvest. So they're not there long enough for you to have to put pesticides on them. So mushrooms are always going to be on the clean 15 list. If you didn't watch already the video that I did with Daryl Andrews and the healthy grocery store tour, go back and watch that because he told us how to wash all of our fruits and vegetables. So even if you feel like you can't buy organic, that there's something you really want but your budget doesn't allow for the organic, go back and watch that video. Near the end, Daryl tells you what to do about that to clean your fruits and vegetables while you're even in the time it takes to unload your groceries and put them away, how you can clean them. And it's something that you probably have at home, and it's not a chemical. So go back and watch that. I hope that this has given you some ideas that organic might be for you, and that it's not as scary as most people think it is, that, oh my gosh, I have to go in there and buy everything organic, and so I'm just not going to buy anything organic. Just pick a few from that list. And again, it's at ewg.org, and you can find that list. You can, I have it printed out like this, but I also just took a snapshot of this from their website, and I keep it in my phone. That way, when I'm out grocery shopping, I can go, oh yeah, that's on the list. And this list changes every year. So bananas aren't on there, I noticed, but you know, you can kind of use your brain and think, oh yeah, that has a thick peel. I don't need to buy that organic. And it probably at some point was on the clean 15 and has just gotten bumped down as they put other stuff on every year. You can also go on that website, and I believe they do a newsletter, and you can sign up for the newsletter, and get any kind of updates like the raisin update that came out in March, and just kind of see what they're doing. I think they talk about things that range from rainwater to fracking. It's not just clean and organic fruits and vegetables. There's a whole range of things on that website that you might find interesting. So I hope this has been informative and beneficial, and I will see you next week on the next episode of Sequestered Chef. Thanks.